Okay, grant money is slow money. And this is a term that I came up with. I take credit for this. Okay. Grant money is slow money. Every, I would say 100% of the people that come to me for consultation or secure my services, my grant writing services, they always are very focused on grants as the main, if not the only, source of funding. Um, Most people, when they decide to start a not for profit and get their 501c3, their thinking is, I want a 501c3 because I want to get grant funds so that I can start my not for profit. Initially, when I started my work as a consultant, I kind of assumed that people knew that there's other ways to fund your organization other than grant funds. My assumption was very wrong, as you probably heard the expression, when you assume, you make a what out of what. So I started to incorporate very early on discussions with my clients about what their funding profile should look like. And grant money is only one source of funding. There's so many other sources of funding. So I teach my clients now to diversify, just like in the for-profit world when people want to invest in a portfolio and they diversify and they invest in a lot of different areas. Well, it's the same when it comes to funding your mission. You need to diversify. You need to have several ways to bring money into the organization. Now, back to grant money being slow money. Why do I say grant money is slow money? Number one, grant funding is highly competitive, so you may not get the grant. So that's number one. You can write a beautiful grant. I can write a beautiful grant. We can dot all of our I's. We could cross all of our T's. We have good services. We have the infrastructure. We have a team. We have all of our designations. But just because of the competitive nature of the grant, you just may not be the person or the organization selected. Also, the grant process can be a lengthy, involved process. Sometimes we don't have enough people or time in order to actually apply for several grants at one time just because they're involved and it's time consuming. So a lot of times people can only focus on one grant at a time, and that's really not enough to fund your organization. If you don't have a grant writer that's constantly, or a development person that's constantly finding grants and writing grants on a daily basis, grant money is not going to be a strong revenue stream for you. Okay. And the time between submitting the application and the decision is made can be up to 6 months. I do not know how to get rid of this little thing at the bottom of my screen, and it's blocking my presentation.
We're not seeing it.
I see it though.
But see
It's
if,
that little menu under stop share.
right, see if all the way to the right on it, if there's either three dots or a drop down, and it's called, I think that's called menu bar or something.
Yeah. I keep trying to click out of it, but then it makes me advance to the next screen. But that's fine.
Have
I'll
you
work it out.
tried, one last thing, have you tried clicking on it and dragging it up to the top?
Let me see here. No, it's not. That doesn't work.
Okay,
It
never
doesn't go up.
mind.
It kind of goes away sometimes, but I don't know what it is that I do that makes it go away.
Okay. And it's not on our screen at all, by the
Well,
way.
that's good. It's just I can't read my own presentations on the bottom. Okay. I'm sharing right now an example of a grant timeline to show you what I mean by how long it might take before you get an answer of whether or not your grant was awarded. So in this particular example, I didn't include the name of the funder, but in their announcement, they state that you have to start with a letter of intent, okay, which is called a LOI. I should have included that in my acronym game. LOI, letter of intent. You're going to see that a lot. For some reason in this world, we use a lot of acronyms, and a lot of people don't think, in this case, the acronym is explained. But sometimes you can go to websites or you can read periodicals and people are using acronyms that are industry specific and they don't even explain what the acronym stands for. So if you're not in the industry, you don't know what the heck they're talking about. Okay. So you will see LOI a lot when you're prospecting for grants. LOI is a letter of intent. Some funders require you to submit a letter of intent before you can actually submit a grant, because the letter of intent just lets them know if they want to invite you to submit the grant. Okay. So in this case, the letter of intent submission period is February 27th to March 10th. This is the initial step in the process to apply for fiscal year 2024 Blue Impact Grant. After review, if selected, applicants will be notified and provided with details to advance to the second stage of the application process. So this is just the first stage. Now, let's say you make it to the second stage. You will get notified the week of May 8th. Okay, so now you started in February. You don't even get notified as to whether you're invited to submit a full application until May. Once you're notified in May that you're able to submit the full application, now you have a window of May 10th to June 2nd to submit the application. Then there's another waiting period, and you will get the full applicant notification the week of June 19th. Fiscal year 2024 funding begins July 2023. So we started in February. We don't even get notified about whether or not we have the grant until June, and we're not going to be funded until July. What are you going to do between February and July for funding? And then what are you going to do after July if you don't get the grant? So this is why we have to have many ways of bringing income into our organization, or our organization will starve. Okay, so we need to diversify your revenue streams. Some of the other ways to bring money into the organization is money raised through fundraising events and campaigns. And this is actually a good thing because funders actually like to see that you're able to raise some of your own money. They typically don't like to be the only funder. So if you can show where you have other ways to make money, they view your organization as sustainable and they're more likely to fund you. It actually works against you if you say we have no money and we need money. They don't want to fund organizations that have no money because that's showing them that you don't know how to raise money. And so the way that they think is, well, if you're dependent on us to fund you, and we're the only sole source of funding, that's not sustainable. Because the minute our grant runs out, what are you going to do? Does that mean services stop? So they don't like that. right? Cash donations from individuals. So this is where you have donation button on your website. You are you may have donation buttons on other different online um, databases or websites that promote organizations, and just individuals that you know. Cash donations from individuals is another source. Fees for service. Again, we talked about not-for-profits can have businesses or they can charge for service. Actually, I don't think we talked about the fact that you can charge for service. Even if you don't have a business, you can have some services that you charge for. So think about that large Head Start program that I used to run. Um, it was Head Start and child care. So if certain parents didn't qualify for Head Start, they went under the umbrella of child care and they paid for their child to be present at the center. Even though that agency was a not-for-profit, they still charged parents child care fees if they didn't qualify for the Head Start program. So fee for service. That large organization I worked for, they also provided counseling services. So if, for individuals that were low income, they would provide it at a reduced rate. But if you had the money, they would charge you full market rate for um for for counseling services. So think about services that you can provide in your area of expertise that people can pay for. The sale of products is another form of income. Also, income from investments. Okay, this is where you need to start talking to Eric. Where can you invest your funds? Where can you invest money? Once you do get some income coming in, maybe some of that can be invested so that you can get a return on your investment and that can feed the organization. And corporate sponsorship. Corporate sponsorship usually is tied to events, but not all the time. And it's usually a quicker turnaround than a full grant. And they usually don't have as much requirements in terms of reporting from the organization. So you may be able to get an answer within 6 weeks. Let's say you're applying to Walmart, or in Texas you have HEB, places like that will give you a grant quickly and also may sponsor some events. And then you have board contribution. Do not forget that your board should be contributing. You want to get board members that can help bring funds into the organization. I always consult my clients to do a give or get stipulation in the bylaws for their board. So if like if you're a person that has to start with maybe close friends for your board and they don't have a ton of money, one thing that they can do is they can raise the money. So even if they can either pay out of their pocket, which will be the give, or they can get the money, meaning they can do a fundraiser, but they're responsible for a certain amount of money. So if you say, hey, the requirement to be on the board is that you give or get $2,500 every year. They have the option of just paying that out of their pocket, or they can raise the money. Give or get. And that something similar to that should be in your bylaws, where you have some requirements for your board. Uh-oh. I might be giving y'all the answer too soon of my question. Okay. So any questions, comments about what I've covered? Does this make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
And if you can't see it, you got a thumbs up from Irma.
Okay. Thank you. Because I couldn't see it.